Welcome, this is Tyler Disney, and we are going to be making a simple family today. This is part one of a family making tutorial. We're just going to be covering basic geometry and setting up a 3D parametric object. In parts two and however many else there will be, we will get to the more interesting information stuff. But for now, we're just going to focus on the geometry aspects of it. So, we're going to be making a VAV box today. I thought it was sort of an interesting thing to make. So, a VAV box, basically, this is the inlet for a duct, comes in, there's a controller, a valve, and then we're going to do a VAV box with a reheat coil on it. So we're going to have some hot water pipe connections coming out the side of it. And then this isn't going to be part of the family, so the family's going to go from here to here. Here's another image of one in action. You can see the inlet duct. There's sort of a box on the side which holds the controller and the brains and the motors and things like that for the valve. And then here's the reheat coil. So let's hop into it. Open up Revit 2013. Start a new family. Nope, not that. I guess I should open a family. New. And we're going to start from the generic model family type. Nope, we're going to start from the mechanical equipment family type. Generic models if you're trying to do something else. So start from the mechanical equipment. Yep. Set up your window properly. Alright. So, this is what we're starting with. Just take a second to familiarize yourself with everything. You come out starting with a reference level, which is just a plan view, elevation, front and left, and then a 3D view, which obviously there's nothing there right now. So first things first, you might be tempted to come in here and just start extruding away. That would be wrong. Don't do that. The very first thing to do when creating a family is actually not using a computer. The very first thing to do is to sketch it. You want to sketch it to sort of plan out how you're going to make it, what principal 3D shapes you're going to use to create the family, and get an idea before you start modeling. That will avoid mistakes. So do that first, but it'll be hard for you to do it now because if this is your first time making a family, you won't really know how to sketch it. So we'll go through this first, and then you'll have an idea of how to do that. After you've sketched it, the very first thing to do is to create your reference planes. Families are built on reference planes, not extrusions. So open up the reference plane, the floor plan view, and let's start making reference planes. So go to create reference plane. You can also use the shortcut RP, which is what I'm going to be using from here on out, and then just start drawing reference planes. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the reference planes that define the box. So got those for the main box, and then remember we had there's sort of a controller box to the side, and I'm deciding now that the controller box is going to be on this side of the unit, and I guess so are the pipes. We'll put the pipes over here too. So okay, so this is going to be the box, and then let's make another reference plane for the heating coil. So main box, heating coil. We'll also make another reference plane for the end of the round duct out here. We'll make another reference plane that's going to define the side of the controller box. And then we're going to need two more to define the ends of the controller box, because they will be different than the main box. If you're confused yet, don't worry, this will make sense in a little bit. And then we're going to need a plane that defines the hot water pipe connections. So we're going to draw that right about there. Right now we've got a mess of reference planes. Very first thing to do is to name them. So so these two that we started with, they're already named. You can't or don't want to rename them, leave them alone. But all the ones that you created, name them. And the primary directions, I guess, are left, right, front, back. So we're going to use that naming convention when we name our planes. So I'm going to name this one main box left. Name that one main box right. This one's going to be reheat coil right. Main box front. Main box back. This one will be inlet left. Controller left. Controller right. And this will be controller back. Okay, so we've got them all named. Now that we have, so we have all our plan reference planes, and we are going to need some reference planes in the vertical direction to define heights and elevations of things, but we'll do that in a second. First, we need to get these reference planes situated and dimensioned. So, an important thing is to make sure that your family is going to has some relation to the origin of the family, and the origin is defined by the intersection of these two primary lines: center, front, back, center, left, right. So, what we'd like to do is we'd like to make the main box symmetrical around the origin. So to do that, we go to the dimension tool, which is around here somewhere. I always use the aligned dimension, and the keyboard shortcut is DI, which I'll be using from now on. But to set symmetry, we're going to set this plane and this plane symmetrical around the center, front, back axis. So to do that, we click on all three of the axis lines, drag out and click, and then you see this little tag here that says EQ with the slash through it. Click it, and that sets them equidistant around that. We're going to do the same thing for these guys. Alright, and those are the only lines that we need to be symmetric. Now that we've got those set, we can actually start making dimensions. So I'm going to set the width of the box by clicking just these two lines and clicking out. And now I've set this, but it's just sort of floating. It's not smart or anything like that. To make it a parameter, you need to go up here to label none and then say add parameter. And I said this was the width, so I'm going to say box width. I want it to be a type parameter. I don't want to be able to change that between instances, and it is a dimension, so everything else here is good. Do the same thing for the length. Call it box length. Then I'm going to set the coil width. I believe you can't have any spaces in your names, by the way. Another thing you'll notice I did is I didn't really pay too much attention to the actual dimensions, because we're going to be setting those in a second, and it's not worth anyone's time to sort of try to draw them in the right places. Just want to draw them, in a sort of scaled relationship to each other, so you know what's going on. But other than that, that's fine. So this is going to be the duct. Inlet duct length, so we're going to call it duct length. And then we're going to have the controller length. It's the length dimension, controller length. Oh, nope, that's really the controller width. Controller width. This is a controller length. That's what we want. And now you'll notice something I've done here. The controller width is related to this line, which has a relationship to the origin. But these two lines, which just have one dimension, they don't have any relation to the origin, so it's sort of free floating. So we need some other dimension, some other relationship between the origin and these two lines. So I'm not really sure what the standard is for VAV boxes. I feel like I've seen them in a number of different ones, in a number of different relationships. But what I'm going to do, just because I can, and this is going to be sort of a generic VAV box, I'm going to set the front of it to pretty much even with this. I might offset it an inch or two. So I'm going to give that a dimension. I'm going to call it controller offset. Yeah, and that'll be fine. So the very last reference plane that I have here in plan is the plan that will locate the position in this direction of the hot water pipe connections. I don't actually care to give that a dimension. I don't care what the dimension is. I would just like it to be in the middle of the reheat coil section. So I'm going to use that EQ tool again. So I'm going to hit DI for dimension, click all three of these guys, and hit EQ. And so however wide this is, this line is just going to be in the middle of them, which is perfectly fine for my uses. Okay, so we've got that sort of settled, and now let's go into a front elevation, this guy, to set the vertical dimensions. Now we've got, we have a couple of options, however we want to think about it. We could set things symmetric around here, so the bottom of the box is somewhere down here, and the top of the box is somewhere up here. But that means is when you set the offset of the family in a project, that offset is going to be the middle of the box. And I prefer thinking about sort of bottom of equipment when I'm setting something and I say it's going to be 10 foot. I kind of assume that that means there's 10 foot of clearance below that. I mean, I don't generally assume that, you know, you have to check things, but that's sort of my intuitive way of thinking about it. So I'm going to build my family that way. So I'm going to make another reference plane, RP, and I'm going to define a line that will be the top of the box, and then another line that's going to be the center line of the box, and that'll be useful for defining the duct connections. And then the only other two reference planes that I think we need are going to be the reference planes that define where the hot water pipe connections are, and they're going to be about here and about here. So I'm going to draw that guy, I'm going to draw that guy, and I'm going to name this pipe connection top. This one will be pipe connection bottom. This one is going to be top plane, and this one is going to be box center line. You might wonder why I'm naming my planes. It's a good habit to name all of your reference planes for two reasons. One, it's just helpful to remember what you're doing. Like, you know, there's a number of reference planes now, and this is a fairly simple family. You can just start getting a lot of reference planes in family, so it's a good habit to be in, just for your own sanity's sake. But another reason is that oftentimes when you make extrusions, you have to tell Revit which plane you want to be drawing off of, what the reference level for that is. And you can't do that unless your plane is named. So it's this button over here, by the way, set, that sets the work plane for you to draw off of. And this list right here is only populated by named reference planes. If I haven't named it, it's not even going to say, you know, default 1 or 1, 2, 3, 4 or anything like that. It just it won't be there. So always name your reference planes and try to give them names that make intuitive sense to you. Okay, dimensions, DI. We're going to set the height of the box. Box height. And then the center line, since I want it to be the true center line, I'm just going to set it equal. And now these two pipe connections. If I was working off a cut sheet, I would maybe look that up, set them to whatever they are based on the cut sheet. But again, this is a generic family, so I'm just going to make it simple on myself. I'm going to set them equidistant, symmetrical around the center line, if Revit will let me do that. Interesting. I might have overconstrained it. We will find out. Actually, I think I did. I think I overconstrained it. So I'm going to undo that. Just hit Control-Z to undo that twice. Instead of doing that, which as I said, I think I just overconstrained it, I'm going to set the distance from the center line. No, you know what? I'm going to set it equidistant. If it overconstrains it, it'll be a good lesson, I guess. Nope. I take it back. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to set this distance here. And I'm going to say that this is the pipe connection offset. I'm going to set the bottom one to the same one, so I'm just going to select it from my list, pipe connection offset. Okay, so I have all of my reference planes relationships set, right? Yes, I think I'm good. So, so here we have our reference level, we have our front elevation, and now what we need to do is we need to make these dimensions sort of make sense and clear some things up. So the place to do that is in the family types dialog. So I hit that button, and we have all of the dimension parameters that we just created and all of the dimensions that were just sort of randomly set based on what I came up with. So I'm just going to sort of take some guesses at what a reasonable box size I think would be to get these sort of populated. So I don't think it's going to be 5 foot tall. I think this box is going to be 24 inches tall, 2 feet. I think the length of it is going to be 3 feet. I think the width of it is going to be 2 foot. Coil width, let's give it 3 inches. Oops, not 3 feet, 3 inches. The controller length, so let's see, our box length is 3 feet. You know what I'm going to do? Instead of giving this a discrete length, I'm going to tell the controller length to be a percentage of the box length. Because if I start changing the length in different types, and keep the controller length the same, it could all of a sudden be too big or too small or something like that. So I'm just trying to make it a I just want to make it sort of a percentage of the box length, which, you know, isn't how you would build it if you were building from a cut sheet. Again, generic family, I just want it to basically work. If I need to set it to something precise, I will go back in and modify the family later. So I'm just going to tell it, so this is the formula column, I'm just going to tell it to be, I'm going to say 3/4 of the box length. So 0.75 times, and just type in box length and hit enter. And I think that is good to go. In previous versions this would gray out, but it appears to be working. So controller offset, that was how far, oh, see, that's nice. It sort of highlights the dimension in the view back here, so I can tell what I'm doing. So how far is it to the front of the box? I just want that to be something small. I wonder if it'll let me do 0. Yeah, it does. Cool. Controller width, I'm gonna say it's 4 inches. The controller box is 4 inches deep. Duct length 4 inches. And the pipe connection offset, this is another one I want to be relational. I want it to be because if I set it to, say, I don't know, a foot, well, if I set it to a foot, it'd be at the top and bottom, because this is a 2-foot tall box. But say if I set it to one thing and then shrunk the height and didn't go back and change this, then I don't have my pipes sort of floating in midair. So I don't want that for my generic box. So I'm going to set this pipe connection offset to be half of the box height divided by 2. I probably could have just called it 1/4 of that, but this is what makes sense to me. Okay, let's hit apply and see what happens. And you'll have to adjust some of your reference planes as everything sort of changed to fit the dimensions that we just entered in. I'm going to tighten this up a bit. That's fine. Terribly interesting tutorial. Not cool if I'm doing a game tutorial or something. The wrong industry, apparently. Okay. Alright, that's fine. Let's check out the elevation. Where's my elevation? Front. Interesting. Right, so this is my coil connection. This is a part where it becomes handy that you named all your reference planes. Top of my box. Such a line. Alrighty. Looking good. Okay, so we have a reference plane set up, but we have one more thing to do before we can start drawing things, and that is to create more than one type. So as you're creating families, you always want to be testing it, because remember, we're not just making one 3D virtual object. We're trying to create a parametric family, which means that you can tell it to be different sizes, and it will intelligently do that and not break, which is, I think, more of an art than a skill. And so as you're building it, it's a good idea to be testing it. So we go back into the family types window, and we want to create a new type. Currently we only have the one, so we'll say new family type, call it type A. So now we have one type, and let's have the second one be type B. And type B is going to be a little bit bigger, so we're going to make it 3 foot, 4 foot long. We're going to make it 2.5 foot wide. The coil width, that's fine. That can stay the same. Controller length, that's the relational controller offset is also fine. Well, just to be clever, let's make that 2 inches. Because it's good to test all of these things. Controller width, let's make it 5 inches. Duct length, that's fine. Pipe connection offset is also relational. Okay. So, we're just checking to see if obvious things are breaking. And it doesn't appear that they are. Take this off to the side. Apply. Okay, no error messages or any obviously funny things going on, so we will keep that. Okay, we can start modeling things. Let's do the box first. This is actually typically the fastest part. So, by default, our set reference plane, or our set plane to be drawing off of, is going to be the reference plane, which is what we want. So, let's go to Create, Extrusion. And so this tab comes up, and you can draw different things. So the shape we want to draw is a box. So we go up here, select Rectangle, and make sure we're drawing on the right planes. So main box back, main box left, good. Click once. This is main box front, and I'm looking, down here. When you mouse over plane, it'll tell you what the name is. So as I mouse over here, you can see it's saying reference plane main box front in that lower left corner. Then likewise here, it's saying main box right. So the intersection is where I want to be. So I click and you see all these lock boxes. Check all those to lock the extrusion. And then, so we've got the sort of plan view laid out for that, but we also want to tell it how far up to extrude itself. And you do that over here in the properties window. It defaults to 1 foot. So you just click on this really not obvious or intuitive button, and then set it to the parameter that we created before, box height. And then just hit the check button, and check that out in your 3D mode, and there you go. Your awesome box. Alright, so what else do we have that we can do in the reference plane? I think all we have is the controller. So we're going to create another simple box for the controller, which is main box left, control back. Oh, you know, that's interesting. So because I made the offset between the main box and the controller box, reference line 0, I can't, it doesn't look like I can click on the other one, on the controller reference plane. So I'm just going to change to type B when I have an offset. There we go. So that's the one I want. And I am going to create my box extrusion. Rectangle, intersection. Lock it up and set the height to the box height. Cool. The dimensions and the relations on this look all goofy, and by that I just mean I guessed funny on what the dimensions of an actual VAV box are. Should probably be a lot less. But anyways, that's the wonder of parametric families, is that you can go in and change those relationships later and create as many variances as you want. So I'm just going to leave it. I think it has character. Alright, so we've got the main box, we've got that guy, controller. very next thing we have is the coil section, which is just another box, the same sort of dimensions as this guy. So go back into extrusion mode, try box, lock it down, give it the correct height, finish. Alright, I have a coil. The very next thing we have to do, or the only things remaining rather, are the hot water pipes and the duct inlet. So let's make the duct inlet first, because that's always fun. So I want to be, so this is on the left side, and so I'm going to need to set my work plane to the to this reference plane, which is in main box left. So I'm going to open up the left elevation view. Now you can see I'm looking get this set up. I'm looking, like my eyeball's right here, and I'm looking this way here. So I'm going to be drawing a circular duct here. So again, first thing we have to do is set the reference plane. So go to set work plane, and we're going to choose main box left. Click OK. Oh, you know what actually I'm going to do? I'm going to open up this guy because it'll show you. I'm going to go back to set. And you can see when you have the 3D view open, it'll show you, it'll sort of sketch out which reference plane you're selecting. So you have a main box right is over there, controller back is over there, main box center line is right there. So it gives you some sort of visual feedback, an assurance that you're picking the right one. So what do we say? Main box left. Okay. And I'm going to draw an extrusion, but this time it's going to be a circular shape that I draw. And I'm going to be careful and make sure that both the vertical and horizontal center lines of my family are highlighted. And then click and draw, and it doesn't matter the size again because we're going to set it. I'm going to hit escape to get out of that tool, and then I'm going to go back into my dimension tool, which is DI. And I can't really do anything to this because I'm in aligned mode, but I'm going to change it to radial. And then just click on the circle, and then click out once, hit escape a couple times, click on the dimension, and I'm going to add another parameter. And this one's going to be inlet duct radius. Select OK. And then the very last thing I need to do is tell it how far to extrude, and we made a parameter for that, which is in duct length. Okay, we're done. Unfortunately for us, what Revit did is it drew our duct in, which means that that distance that we said, the sort of positive direction that it thinks for that reference plane is clearly to the right. We actually want it to go to the left. And you can't just say negative this parameter that I've created. It doesn't allow you to do that. This frustrated me for quite some time until I realized how Revit was thinking about it and how you can control it. So go back into the reference plane. And if you've done much 3D modeling before, you might be familiar with the concept of normals. So faces in planes in 3D geometry have normals, which is the direction that's orthogonal to the plane. Orthogonal is another word for perpendicular. So the normal for this plane, the one that I sketched on, is to the right. And that's why our extrusion is popping into our duct instead of out of into the box instead of out of the box. I was really frustrated for a long time because I didn't know how to change that. But actually, all you have to do is flip it. So grab the top handle and click and drag, and bring it down there, and you have successfully flipped the normal to now be facing to the right. So yeah, that's all there is to it. But that's a bit large. I want it to be smaller. So I'm going to go in and change inlet duct rad to be 6 inches. No, yep, radius 6 inches, so the diameter is 12 inches. My box is way too big. Yeah, it's way too big. I have to change that. Okay. Oh, yeah, right. Now's a good time to change. Save it. Let's see. Box. Oops, probably not that one. Family. Generic VAV box. Reheat. I'm just going to tighten up these dimensions a bit. So the height is going to be, let's go to type A. Height is going to be 18 inches. I think it's going to be 2 feet. Width is going to be 18 inches. I'm going to make the controller width a bit bigger, so it's looking skinny. Right. Alright. That's looking more like a respectable VAV box. Okay, so we've got our duct inlet. Now we just need our pipes. So, we need to be sketching on this plane, the main box backed plane. So we don't have that open right now, but I'm going to open it. Go over here to the elevations, back. I'll keep that guy open. And so the pipes that I want to create are going to be here and here. So let's set our work plane to main box back. Create set and main box back. Checks out. And then I'm just going to create some extrusions, circular ones. That one, that one. Hit escape a couple times. Go to the dimension tool, DI, radial. And you might be wondering why I'm using the radial dimension as opposed to the diameter dimension, because we typically call out pipes in terms of diameter. You will see very shortly. Just bear in mind that for now, the way the family creator works, it's easier to do that. Okay, so we have those. Now we just need to tell Revit how. Oh, I'm sorry. We need to give them a label, a parameter. I'm going to call that pipe connection rad. Pipe connection rad. Okay, and we want them. This is one where I'm not going to make a parameter for it because I feel like it's not all that important to be able to change that, and the fewer parameters I have sort of polluting my family, the easier it is to work with. So I'm just going to say that they're sticking out of the box about 4 inches and call it a day. Alright, the green checkbox. Looking good. Alright, let's tighten those up a bit. Pipe connection rad, let's make them 3/4 inch diameter, so that's engineer, so I'm bad at math. 0.375. And I'm going to do that for type A and type B as well. What? What? Can't make extrusion. Oh, I think I did something bad. Current parameter values. Okay, cancel that. What did I do? Let's go back here. Oh, so the way to get back into an extrusion is to click on the extrusion you made and hit Edit Extrusion, and you can get back in here. Pipe connection ran. Okay. And go back here. Connection run. 0.0 0.0-0.375. So 1/3 of an inch. Yeah, there we go. I think I was just telling it to be too big. Something about I was telling it to be that many feet instead. So okay, what type A do for type B as well? 0-0.375. Biff. That's the ugly one. Type A. Okay. Yeah, that looks pretty nice. So the last thing we need to do is we need to create the pipe and duct connections. Now it's going to be sort of informational connections that you attach to 3D geometry that when the family is in your project, you can select the family and those tags will pop up and you can right click and say draw a duct or draw a pipe, and there'll be some intelligence built into it. We're just going to set them up. We're not going to do anything real fancy with them. Like I said, that's for a later day. This is getting long-winded enough as it is, but this is a fundamental thing you need to know how to do to make any family. So we've got a duct connection here, and then the pipe connections here. Let's do the ducts first. So go up here to create duct connector, and then just mouse over until you get the face you want, and click that guy. That's rectangular, but no big deal. And then mouse over this guy and set that one. So this guy is well, it's rectangular and we don't want that. So over here in the properties, just change it to round. And then its radius is clearly, crazy. And we want it to be the same as this guy. So the way to do that, if you see this little plus symbol right here, click that, and then you can set it to the parameter that you created so that the duct connection remains intelligent. And that is inlet duct rad. And so this is why the parameter we created, we told it to be the radius, not the diameter, because the connections, the duct and pipe connections, think in terms of radius. As far as I've been able to tell, I can't set them to diameter, so it's just easier if you have one parameter for both of them instead of needing to create both a radius and a diameter parameter. So yeah, that's the story. Last thing to do is to set some of this information here. So set this to system, I believe is what we want. I'll get into that more in the next tutorial. Flow direction, this is all pretty self-explanatory stuff. Supplier, yeah, that's fine. Leave everything else as it is. So we'll just go set this guy. And this one is rectangular, that's what we want. And so we can just set the height to the box height and the width to the box width. Change it to out. Supplier, rectangular, okay. And we can give it a description, why not? Box out. And this one can be box in, box in. Okay, good to go. The pipe connections are the exact same thing. Create pipe connector. Make sure you get the right guy selected. Set the radius. We'll set the top one to be inlet, so it's coming in. Let's take a better look. Nope, not domestic hot water. Hydronic supply. Also calculated in okay. And it's more important to give this a descriptor, so we're going to call this hot water supply. This one is going to be out. Electronic return. I'm going to call this hot water return. And we'll just say bottom, because that actually becomes helpful when you're connecting these things. So top. Okay. Man, we're done. That's it. You've created your very own sort of fully functional parametric VA VBox family. Congratulations. Save it. Yeah, that's it. If you had your project open, you could hit load in a project and it would dump it in there and you could start playing with it. But I don't have one open, so this is the end of the tutorial. Thanks. Hope it was helpful.